First strike. The signal arrived on a Tuesday, not with dramatic fanfare, but as an anomalous data pattern detected by the United Earth Space Observatory's Deep Space Array in the Atacama Desert. Dr. Marcus Way studied the peculiar waveform on his holographic display, tracing its origin to somewhere beyond Neptune's orbit. After 2 decades of scanning the cosmos for extraterrestrial communications, humanity had finally received an unmistakable message. It's structured, Way explained to General Amara Okafor during the emergency briefing at United Earth Defense Headquarters. Mathematical sequences, repeated patterns. This isn't random cosmic noise. The general's expression remained stoic. Can we decrypt it? Already working on it, Way replied. The signal contains embedded visual data. We're rendering it now. The room fell silent as the holographic projector at the center of the table flickered to life. A 3-dimensional image materialized, a being unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Its form was vaguely humanoid but with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. 6 eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern regarded them with unsettling intelligence. People of Earth, the being spoke in flawless English, its voice resonating with an almost musical quality. I am Ambassador Jalix of the Galactic Council. We have observed your civilization's development with great interest. The time has come for first contact. We arrive in peace to welcome humanity into the greater galactic community. Over the next 72 hours, Earth transformed. Global markets soared, religious leaders called for unity, and governments worldwide prepared for the most significant diplomatic event in human history. The Galactic Council's vessel appeared just beyond lunar orbit, an enormous structure of gleaming metal and crystalline projections that dwarfed humanity's most ambitious space stations. When Ambassador Jalix's shuttle descended to the United Nations headquarters in New York, billions watched. Representatives from every nation gathered to witness humanity's introduction to galactic society. The ambassador, accompanied by a delegation of varied alien forms, offered technological gifts and promises of advancement that would propel Earth centuries forward. The Council has identified Earth as a world of exceptional potential, Jalix announced to thunderous applause. Your species possesses a remarkable capacity for adaptation and innovation. We wish to accelerate your development and welcome you as partners. Dr. Elena Reyes watched the broadcast from her laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, her unease growing with each passing moment. As the director of the Advanced Quantum Physics Division, she had spent years developing experimental defensive systems against potential extraterrestrial threats, work that many colleagues had dismissed as paranoid. They're being too generous, she muttered to her assistant, Dr. Kai Chen. No advanced civilization offers technology this freely without expecting something in return. Chen nodded, his fingers dancing across a haptic interface. I've analyzed the schematics they provided for their clean energy systems. There's something odd about the resonance patterns. They don't just generate power, they also create a specific subspace frequency. Reyes leaned forward. Show me. 3 days later, while world leaders signed the preliminary membership agreement with the Galactic Council, Reyes presented her findings to a small committee of military and scientific leaders. It's a network, she explained, pointing to the simulation running on the laboratory's main screen. Each of these devices, if deployed globally as suggested, would create a planetary web of quantum entanglement, not for energy production, for surveillance and control. General Okafor studied the data. You're suggesting this is an invasion strategy? I'm suggesting we exercise caution, Reyes replied. The Council claims Earth is unique, but they haven't specified why. We need to understand what they truly want before integrating their technology into our infrastructure. The warning came too late. As dawn broke over the Pacific the following day, the Galactic Council revealed its true intentions. Massive ships emerged from hyperspace, positioning themselves in strategic locations around Earth. Ambassador Jalix's benevolent demeanor vanished as his image appeared on every communication device worldwide. People of Earth, he began, his voice now cold and clinical. Your planet possesses a unique property found nowhere else in our explored galaxy, the highest concentration of neural-compatible biomatter. This rare resource is essential for the Council's continued evolution. Regrettably, its extraction requires the processing of your biosphere. Resistance is futile and will only increase suffering during the harvesting procedure. The first strikes targeted military installations and defensive systems with surgical precision. The gift technology had mapped Earth's defenses comprehensively, leaving humanity vulnerable. Nuclear deterrents failed to launch, communication networks collapsed, and orbital defenses were neutralized within hours. In the chaos that followed, Dr. Rice activated Protocol Omega, a contingency plan developed for this exact scenario. Her facility, shielded by experimental quantum camouflage, became invisible to Council sensors. As refugees from nearby military installations arrived, she explained the dire situation. "They want our brains," she stated bluntly to the assembled personnel. "Human neural tissue has properties they value, probably related to our unique consciousness development. They'd done this before to other species. These aren't diplomats. They're harvesters." "How do you know this?" demanded Colonel Harper, his uniform still smoking from escaping his destroyed base. Rice projected a hologram showing Council communications she had intercepted and decrypted. "They've been discussing extraction quotas and processing methods. They consider us livestock, nothing more." By the end of the first week, Earth's organized military response had crumbled. The Council's harvest ships descended on major population centers, deploying collection drones that swept through streets and buildings, capturing humans for processing aboard the massive vessels. Resistance was sporadic and ineffective against the advanced weaponry of the invaders. Yet amid the devastation, something unexpected occurred. The Council's communication network experienced intermittent failures. Their drones occasionally malfunctioned, sometimes turning against each other. Collection ships reported navigation errors that led them into natural obstacles. In her underground facility, now housing over 300 survivors, Dr. Rice worked tirelessly on what she called Project Defiance. Her team had discovered something remarkable. The quantum field generated by human brainwaves created subtle interference patterns in Council technology. "They want our neural matter because it's special," she explained to the impromptu War Council. "But that same property is their weakness. Our consciousness, our minds, naturally disrupt their systems when concentrated. They didn't account for that." Colonel Harper looked skeptical. "Are you suggesting we can think our way out of this invasion?" "Not exactly," Rice replied with the first smile she'd managed in days. "But I've modified our experimental quantum amplifiers to enhance and project these disruption patterns. If we can establish a global network of these devices and synchronize enough human minds in proximity, we can create systemic failures in their technology." General Okafor, who had barely escaped Washington's fall, leaned forward. "How many amplifiers do you have?" 3 functional prototypes, Rice admitted. "We'd need hundreds, distributed worldwide, to create a significant effect." "Then we build them," the general stated firmly. "And we find a way to spread the word. If humanity stands any chance, it's through this." As the first month of occupation neared its end, Earth's population had been reduced by nearly 15%. Yet in hidden bunkers, abandoned mines, remote villages, and wilderness enclaves, resistance grew. Using cobbled-together communication systems that operated outside Council detection parameters, survivors shared knowledge, resources, and hope. The plans for Rice's quantum amplifiers spread through this shadowy network. Communities repurposed salvage technology and improvised with available materials to construct crude but functional versions of her design. Each amplifier required a group of humans to gather in meditation-like concentration, focusing their thoughts in patterns Rice had determined would maximize disruption. On the 90th day of occupation, as dawn broke over what remained of human civilization, Project Defiance activated. Across 6 continents, in thousands of locations, humans gathered around jury-rigged amplifiers, their minds synchronized in rebellion against their would-be harvesters. The effect began subtly: communication errors between council ships, drone malfunctions, processing delays. But as more amplifiers came online, the disruption grew exponentially. Collection vessels lost power, drifting aimlessly. Defense systems turned inward, council ships firing upon one another. The carefully orchestrated harvest descended into chaos. In her mountain facility, Dr. Rice monitored the cascading failures with grim satisfaction. "It's working," she told the exhausted but hopeful faces around her. "Humanity is fighting back the only way we can, with the very thing they wanted to harvest." As the Council's forces faltered, the resistance emerged from hiding. Armed with repurposed alien technology and guided by strategies developed in the crucible of occupation, humanity launched its counterattack. Defiance rising. Ambassador Jalix's message played across the few remaining functional communication networks, his once melodious voice now distorted with what could only be described as panic. "Cease your disruption activities immediately," he demanded. "You damage irreplaceable council technology and endanger the entire harvest operation. This resistance is unprecedented and unacceptable." In the command center of Resistance Headquarters, formerly Dr. Rice's mountain laboratory, General Okafor allowed herself a thin smile. "He sounds worried." "He should be," Rice replied, studying the quantum field projections displaying worldwide amplifier activity. "The synchronization effect is growing stronger than anticipated. Their neural networks are experiencing cascading failures. They never expected us to weaponize our consciousness." The counteroffensive had entered its second week. What began as disruption had evolved into something more profound. Humanity had learned to actively manipulate council technology through concentrated thought patterns amplified by Dr. Rice's devices. Salvage drones now responded to human controllers. Defense systems could be temporarily disabled by synchronized meditation groups. The hunters had become vulnerable to their prey. Yet the Council's technological superiority remained overwhelming. For every ship disabled, 3 more arrived. For every drone reprogrammed, dozens continued their grim harvest. Humanity needed more than disruption. It needed a decisive weapon. Dr. Kai Chen had been working without sleep for days, analyzing captured council technology in the laboratory adjacent to the command center. When he finally emerged, his exhausted face bore an expression of cautious hope. "Their ships," he began without preamble, "are controlled by a distributed neural network, essentially an artificial brain composed of harvested neural matter from previous species." Reyes immediately grasped the implications. "That's why our disruption works. The consciousness patterns are compatible." Chen nodded. "But here's the critical discovery. The network requires constant synchronization with the Council's central hub, a quantum entanglement network that maintains cohesion across their entire fleet. A single point of failure," General Okafor said, strategic mind immediately identifying the opportunity. "Not exactly single," Chen corrected, "but vulnerable nonetheless. Each major vessel contains a synchronization node. The flagship, Ambassador Jalix's command vessel, houses the primary node for Earth operations." Rice was already calculating possibilities. If we could access that node and introduce a sufficiently powerful quantum disruption pattern, we could potentially sever their entire fleet from central control. Chen finished. Their ships would become isolated, their coordination lost. The plan that emerged was audacious to the point of madness. While resistance cells worldwide intensified disruption activities to divert Council attention, a small team would infiltrate the flagship itself. The key operatives would be what they now called resonators, humans with unusually strong disruptive effect on Council technology. Dr. Rice, whose brainwave patterns showed exceptional synchronization potential, would lead the infiltration team personally. The mission was called Project Phoenix, a symbol of humanity's potential rebirth from the ashes of near extinction. The opportunity came 3 days later, when disruption activities forced the flagship to descend to lower altitude over the Pacific to conduct emergency repairs. Using a captured Council shuttle modified to broadcast friendly identification signatures, Reyes's team of 12 approached under the guise of returning from a successful collection mission. Remember, Reyes reminded her team as they prepared to board, once inside, maintain mental focus. Think of it as meditation, the patterns we practiced. Your thoughts are literally our weapons now. The flagship's interior was a nightmare of biomechanical integration, organic components fused with advanced technology in ways that defied conventional engineering. Most disturbing were the processing chambers where captured humans were systematically converted into compatible neural material. Guided by schematics developed from Council data intercepts, the team navigated toward the central synchronization node. They encountered surprisingly little resistance. The disruption activities worldwide had drawn security forces elsewhere, and their presence near the node was partially masked by their own thought patterns. The synchronization chamber itself was a vast spherical space at the vessel's heart. Suspended in its center was what appeared to be a crystalline structure pulsing with bioluminescent energy, the physical manifestation of the quantum network coordinating the entire invasion fleet. "It's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Santos, one of the military escorts. "In a terrible way." "And vulnerable," Reyes replied, activating the specialized amplifier they had carried aboard, a device no larger than a briefcase but containing the most refined version of her technology. The 12 team members arranged themselves in a circle around the amplifier, each placing their hands on its surface. As they had practiced countless times, they began the synchronized thought patterns, not fighting the quantum field but becoming part of it, introducing a new harmony that would disrupt the existing patterns. Council alarms activated almost immediately. Security drones converged on their position. Lieutenant Santos and his soldiers formed a defensive perimeter, using reprogrammed Council weapons to hold back the initial response. "They've detected us," Chen reported, maintaining his focus on the amplifier. Synchronization disruption at 15% and rising. Ambassador Jalix's voice echoed through the chamber. "Dr. Elena Reyes, your resistance is impressive, but ultimately futile. The Council has harvested thousands of species across millennia. None have survived." Reyes didn't respond, pouring her consciousness into the amplifier, visualizing the disruption patterns spreading through the crystalline node like cracks in ice. Around her, her team did the same, their combined mental effort creating ripples in the quantum field visible as distortions in the air itself. Synchronization disruption at 40%. Chen updated. The subsidiary nodes are starting to lose coherence. Outside the flagship, the effects were becoming apparent. Council vessels drifted out of formation. Collection operations halted as drones lost direction. Communication between ships dissolved into incoherent data streams. Ambassador Jalix himself appeared at the chamber entrance, his iridescent form pulsing with what appeared to be rage. "You cannot comprehend what you are destroying," he seethed. "The Council's neural network represents the preserved wisdom of 1,000 civilizations." "Forced wisdom," Reyes replied without breaking her concentration. "Harvested without consent. That's not preservation, it's predation." "Disruption at 70%, Chen announced. "Primary node showing critical instabilities." With a gesture from Jalix, the security drones intensified their attack. 2 of Reyes's team fell, their connection to the amplifier broken. The disruption wavered momentarily before the remaining members compensated, their mental focus intensifying. "You believe yourselves special," Jalix said, approaching despite the visible discomfort the amplifier's field caused him. "You are merely resources, exceptionally compatible neural matter. Nothing more." "You're wrong," Reyes countered, her voice strained with effort. "What makes us valuable is exactly what makes us dangerous to you. Our adaptability, our individuality within collective action, our capacity to find strength in apparent weakness." The crystalline node at the center of the chamber began to fracture, lines of darkness spreading through its luminescent structure. Throughout the Council fleet, systems failed catastrophically as the organizing intelligence that coordinated them collapsed. 90% disruption. Chen managed through gritted teeth, approaching critical threshold. Ambassador Jalix made a final desperate lunge toward the amplifier, but as he entered the field's core radius, his form seemed to dissolve, the coherence of his own neural structure undermined by the same disruption affecting the network. "What have you done?" he gasped as his physical form destabilized. "We've rejected your harvest," Rise answered simply. The synchronization node shattered with a silent implosion that rippled outward through quantum space, throughout Earth's atmosphere and beyond. Council vessels lost all operational capability simultaneously. Collection drones fell from the sky like metallic rain. Processing chambers powered down, releasing their not yet converted captives. The infiltration team barely escaped the flagship before its systems failed completely, sending the massive vessel plummeting into the Pacific Ocean. Similar scenes played out worldwide as the invading fleet, severed from its coordinating intelligence, ceased to function as a coherent force. In the aftermath, humanity faced an unprecedented opportunity. Thousands of disabled council vessels lay scattered across the planet, containing technology centuries beyond Earth's development. The cost had been catastrophic, over 1 billion lives lost to the harvesters. But humanity had not merely survived, it had prevailed. 3 months after what became known as the synchronization battle, Dr. Rice addressed the newly formed United Earth Council from the reclaimed United Nations headquarters in New York. "We've confirmed that our disruption signal propagated through the quantum network to the Council's central coordination hub 17 light-years from Earth," she reported. "Their entire harvesting operation has been compromised. We've effectively introduced a virus into their neural network, a virus made of human thought patterns." "And they won't return?" asked the representative from the African Union. "They can't," Rice explained. "Their technology is fundamentally vulnerable to our neural patterns now. Earth is, quite literally, toxic to their systems." General Okafor, now Secretary of Defense for the United Planet, added, "We've begun adapting their vessels for our use. Within 5 years, we'll have a fleet capable of interstellar travel. And more importantly, we now understand the wider galactic community, including which species might have suffered as we did." "You're suggesting we find allies," the European representative observed. "I'm suggesting," Okafor replied carefully, "that we ensure no other species faces harvesting again. The Council believed they were the apex predators of the galaxy. They were wrong." As the meeting concluded, Dr. Rice gazed through the windows at the New York skyline, still bearing the scars of occupation, but alive with reconstruction activity. Among the wreckage of a Council collection ship, workers were erecting a memorial to those lost, a massive sculpture depicting human hands cradling a shattered crystal, symbolic of humanity's victory. The Galactic Council had indeed struck first. But humanity's response had forever changed the balance of power among the stars. They had not merely survived extinction. They had emerged as a power that even the ancient Council now had reason to fear. Not because of superior technology or overwhelming force, but because of what the Council had sought to harvest: the unique, adaptable, indomitable nature of human consciousness itself. The very quality that had made humanity valuable had made it unconquerable.